I'd like to call this meeting to order, this regular City Council meeting of Tuesday, March 6th. The clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Wolcott.
Here.
Vice Mayor Remley.
Here.
Councilmember Duffy.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Tandy.
Here.
Councilmember Hayden.
Here.
Councilmember Winters.
Here.
Thank you.
And leading the pledge tonight are students from the Friends of Rachel Club at Countryside Elementary School. So all please rise and join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I want to welcome to the dais this evening our new members for the Youth Council. We have two new members from the Youth Council joining us on the dais. We rotate these members every month or so. So this evening I'd like to welcome Bailey Rice. Bailey, raise your hand so we know who you are. Bailey is a junior at Willow Canyon High School. And then next to her we have Jade Stanton. Jade. And Jade is a junior at Paradise Honors High School. Welcome, ladies. It's a pleasure to have you here this evening. So we'll move right into our proclamations. And I have to say tonight, we have amazing staff. I try to say that as often as I can, but I never can say it enough. And, you know, there's a group among our staff who are the unsung heroes in so many ways, and that's our procurement department. Because our employees who are procuring for our citizens, they basically keep us accountable and transparent, and I just want to thank them. And so tonight we are acknowledging them with a proclamation. So please have some patience while I wander down to the microphone. These are the unsung heroes. So, whereas the public procurement profession plays a significant role in the efficiency and effectiveness of both government and business, and whereas in addition to the purchase of goods and services, procurement profession adds value to the organizations by performing such functions as vendor registration, contract administration, surplus property sales, developing strategic procurement strategies, and cultivating working relationships with suppliers and other departments within the organization. And whereas public procurement professionals who are members of the Institute for Public Procurement, NIGP, and other public and private organizations have tremendous influence on purchases made by their organizations. And whereas employees of the City of Surprise Finance Department Procurement Division are committed to providing responsive and efficient purchasing, contracting, and surplus services to the city departments so they can receive timely approvals to efficiently purchase the goods and services they need in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. And whereas other employees in various departments throughout the city are committed to conducting ethical purchasing practices following adopted purchasing policies and procedures. And whereas the City of Surprise recognizes, supports, and practices the public procurement values and guiding principles of accountability, ethics, impartiality, professionalism, service, and transparency established by the NIGP as fundamental tenets of the public procurement profession. And whereas NIGP has proclaimed the month of March as Procurement Month to further expand the awareness of the purchasing professional's role in governmental officials, the general public, business, and corporate leaders. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Sharon Wolcott, Mayor of the City of Surprise, do hereby proclaim March 2018 as Procurement Month in the City of Surprise and call upon our residents, visitors, and businesses to recognize the role of public procurement within government and business. Thank you all for keeping us looking good. I really do appreciate it. So congratulations.
I saw you, Bob, trying to get out.
All right, next we'll move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. I have two important parts of my report. First, I'd like to introduce Susan DeYoung, who's going to, she's the chair of our Arts and Culture Advisory Commission. She's got some very important presentations to make. Susan.
This evening, we're awarding prizes for our bat contest. This is our 4th year, and the first time we're doing it here. The bats are on display in the case out in the atrium, so if you'd like to see them after the meeting, please do. Our third prize winner is Ryan Henderson from Surprise Elementary, and she is in 6th grade, and her teacher is Janelle Watson. So please come up, Ryan. Our second prize winner is Tiffany Syke from Mountain View. She's in 7th grade, and her teacher is Tina Watts. Our first place winner is Sydney Doe from Mountain View. And she is in 8th grade, and her teacher is Tina Watts. Now, this is going to start sounding redundant. And we simply put numbers on the bats when we choose them. We have no idea who painted any bat. Our grand prize winner is Christian Doe from Mountain View. He is in 6th grade, and his teacher is Tina Watts. And he gets a little extra. For those of you that were wondering why I was carrying a bat, you're welcome. Don't hide behind me. Any parents want to take pictures?
Does everybody have their shots? Parents? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, I'll bring up our leader of all our wonderful youth services and surprise, Mike Cassidy. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It is my pleasure to be here this evening, as always, to introduce some very special guests that we have with us tonight. They are students from Countryside Elementary's Friends of Rachel Club, and they are joined here tonight by Principal Hessler, Assistant Principal Hill, and Mr. Miller. Will all the faculty from Countryside Elementary please stand to be recognized? And at this time, I'd like to invite students Cassidy Ryan, Natalia Click, and Kenzie Doré to the podium to share a few words about their school.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Ryan from Countryside Elementary, and I'm the president of Rachel's Challenge. In the light of our national struggle to have peace in all of our schools, 4 Club at Countryside has a mission of spreading the message of culture and kindness to all of our students, staff, and families. We strive toward this goal by focusing on several different influential initiatives to ensure that everyone in our community understands the value of kindness and can experience it firsthand. Over the holiday season, 4 Club organized an angel tree project at Countryside to support needy families in our community. Through the generosity of our Countryside students, staff, and parents, we were able to help 9 families and 25 children to have a blessed holiday season. Each child was able to receive 3 gifts through this initiative.
Hi, my name is Natalia Click. I'm the secretary of 4 Club, and my committee is the Buddy Bench. Rachel's Challenge at Countryside has decided to implement a Buddy Bench. We have purchased a buddy bench to be installed in our playground and courtyard area, which will be labeled our Rachel's Challenge Buddy Bench. Students feeling lonely or down will be able to come sit on this bench, where our 4 Club members will be ready and willing to greet them with a smile and provide companionship and encouragement to them, along with a listening ear.
That's nice.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Doré. I am the treasurer of 4 Club and in charge of kindness chains. Every Friday at Countryside, our 4 Club conducts a Quarters for Kindness initiative. We sell kindness chains for a quarter to students as they arrive at school. Students purchase them as a way of making a commitment to perform some act of kindness for someone at Countryside. As a result of this initiative, we are proud to say that so far over 500 intentional acts of kindness have been displayed at our school. Together, we are partnering with Rachel's vision of starting a chain reaction of kindness. Thank you.
Good job. So while this group is coming forward for their photographs, and I appreciate the parents, you certainly can come down and take a close-up shot with the kids. But I want to say I'm so proud of these kids and all of the kids who participated in Rachel's Challenge. I think we started this program about 7 years ago, and it's just grown, and it's so impressive, the individual programs that these kids have dreamed up on their own in order to try to promote kindness and culture to the kids in the city of Surprise. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for all of the work that you do to help promote such a great cause. Thanks, and thank them again. Bob, that's the end of your report. All right, we'll move on to the city attorney's report
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
and the city clerk's report.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move straight to a call to the public.
Yes, we have 2 speakers. The first speaker is Ken Wright.
Mr. Wright, if you'd step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Ken Wright. I live in district that Skip is a representative. Tonight I want to talk about leadership. I want to get into this by looking at a national citizen survey sheet that was completed in 2015. These are online now if people want to look at an update. And the purpose of this is to find out what people think should be done and to help council prioritize with limited funds. And it's done by an outfit called National Research Center of Boulder, Colorado. The last survey was done in 2015, and 90% of the residents indicated they would recommend Surprise as a place to live, a rating that is much above surveyed cities of our size. Residents told us safety, mobility, and the economy were the most important items. Respondents said we need to work on improving transportation options, local job choices, education, and resident volunteer opportunities. And here are some of the results. Since the survey, 2,000 new jobs have been created in Surprise. In partnership with the ADOT, completed the Bell Grand intersection improvements. Greenway Road was widened. Residents passed a general obligation bond to fund projects in public safety, transportation, and pavement preservation. And Human Service and Community Vitality Department continues to grow volunteer opportunities, most recently hosting nearly 400 volunteers during the city's second annual Dr. Martin Luther King Day celebration service. On the education front, Ottawa University opened a campus at City Center. Westmec's new Northwest Valley campus opened last summer, and Highland Prep began classes last fall. I might add to this the current Old Town Surprise thing is going on now, even though that's not submitted to this, and the transit study, the additional is the review of the signage that's going on by the council. So those are some things I want to add. On the negative leadership side, I want to talk about some things that have been in the newspaper and letters here and there, and condemning the council's vote to put Patrick Duffy and Nancy Hayden on the council. And they were described in one writing as yes votes, that the council put them on there for yes votes. Based on what I just got through reading, I, as one citizen, would like to see more yes votes. Just keep it coming. Keep good things going. Don't worry about being a yes vote. And the thing that about negative leadership, there 7 people applied for those positions, and 1 or 2 of them that applied were not happy with the results, and they put out some sour grapes notices. And I think that's negative leadership. I think that I think it's an old Chinese proverb that he who slings mud, loses ground. And I think that's what happens. And I think the council's absolutely right in their determination to vote the way they see it. There is no right or wrong, and people are saying, well, this guy voted right, that guy voted wrong. Well, everybody votes their own opinion. So I don't like the negative aspect of what went on. And if people are going to be doing that, they have no business being on the council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wright.
James Truman.
Good evening, and if you would just identify yourself for the record. Not that we don't know who you are, but it's good to see you again.
James Truman, and I live at 17301 West Waddell Road, where I've been living for the last 70 plus years. So I'm here tonight to talk briefly about light pollution in Surprise. And I've been before this council, the P&Z, Planning and Zoning Commission, outreach groups, advisory groups in the city for many years talking about this topic. It's very special to me, of course. And the world is changing. You see this topic so many times in different venues, in National Geographic and Time Magazine and any newspaper talking about light pollution and the causes of many different things which it affects, not to mention us humans. Recently, another Arizona city became a dark sky city, and I'm hoping that Surprise can kind of really take a quick look at this and kind of think about this, and maybe we could get on this bandwagon. Instead of being a follower in this arena, we should be a leader, as Mr. Wright was just talking about, and do something about it. And guess what I found out? It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's APS's fault. APS controls the lights used in this city. So I'm talking with them. Some of city staff has been working with me. We're talking to APS to see if we can get some new selections for lights to be used as street lights. They're telling me we don't have enough requests for lights because all of our lights meet state standards, which is a full cutoff. There's no light below, no light above the plane of the light. That's great because those light standards are all developed by guess who? Astronomers. Where are they? Way up in the mountains. They don't see the lights. All of us live below the lights. So when we're driving, we see those lights. You put your hand up when you're driving. Look at these lights here. Put my hands up. I can see you much better. With these lights, human eyes do an involuntary reaction. They shut down the iris. I don't see you people clearly. But if I do this, you look much better to me now. It's as simple as that. A light with a small shield about this at 18-foot high will keep the light within 400 or 500 feet, doesn't matter. Your street lights are 150 feet, so there's plenty of overlap. But if you're standing 600 feet from a light, you don't see that light, and it doesn't bother your eye. So these small shields on lights are so important. And of course, I've been around a long time enjoying dark skies, and I'd like to see some of them come back. I happen to be right next to our UFO landing site over there, which we call Auto Row. And the lights there started out to be absolutely horrible, but they've gotten better, and I appreciate that very much. They're adhering to dark sky standards, which are full cutoff lights. I think we can do better. And it's really getting important to me because guess what? After all these years, we're selling some of our farm, and we're going to have community right next to our back door. We're going to stay there with about 15 acres. And if something can be done to help change this light situation, crank on APS to get them to change their light standards just a wee bit, we will all be much better off. And then I can enjoy my retirement years a little more comfortably at night sitting on my back porch looking at the white tanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Truman. Anyone else?
That is all, Mayor.
All right. So we'll move straight into the consent agenda, which consists this evening of 5 items. Does any member of council wish to remove any item for further discussion?
Pull number 1, please, Mayor.
Item number 1. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, if I will entertain a motion for items 2 through 5.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve items 2 through 5 with consent agenda as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Need Councilmember Hayden's vote, please. Thank you very much.
Okay.
7 a yes vote, Mayor. Unanimous.
Okay, very good. And we'll go to item number 1.
Just to let Mr. Bossman know your item was approved. Thank you. Item number 1, consideration and action pertaining to approval of an amendment to the fiscal year 2018 budget by reallocating appropriations of $7,400 within the grants and contingency fund to the Arizona Lottery Fund for the increase in city allotted funds, the application and acceptance of fiscal year 2018 ALF funds in the amount of $357,324, and amending the fiscal year 2018 operating list of items over 50,000, resolution 2018-32.
Thanks, Mike.
Good evening, Mayor.
Councilmember?
Hi, Mike. How you doing? On this, we get this from the lottery every year, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we get the money according to the population of the city?
That is correct.
Okay, on this 357,324, you say it's going to go to our transit system.
It can only go towards transit.
Okay, how are you going to use it in our transit system?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Winters, our transit demands are significantly greater than the amount of money that we receive from the Arizona Lottery funds.
No kidding.
The good news is, though, that the Arizona Lottery funds amount that we're getting this year is higher than last year, so that does help. But you could pick any of our three major services, and all three of them would cost more than what we receive from this. And so, it's hard for me to say which one gets it, but really all of them. It's part of what we pay for all of our services with.
Okay, very good. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Councilmember.
Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to approve this item.
I move to approve Resolution 2018-32.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2018-32 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. All right, we'll move forward to item 6.
Consideration and action pertaining to declaration of a public record and approval of a text amendment to Chapter 113 of the Surprise Municipal Code regarding signs. This is ordinance 2018-04.
Robert, welcome back again. Here we are again on this item. And council, just to refresh your memory, we the last time visited this item, recognized that there was a planning commission approved or recommended a proposal, and we wish to have one that was with the addition of the planning commission's approval of some modest improvements to the sign code to include billboards, and then one presentation that would give us the option to approve the same sign code, same recommendations from the Planning Commission without billboards. Is that correct?
Mayor, council members, good evening. Essentially, yes, we met about a month ago, and the Planning Commission had recommended approval of a draft code that included billboards, and that led to a very lengthy discussion. And based on that discussion, we went back, took that draft and retooled it, and wrote in language that was basically prohibits billboards. And then we also took that opportunity to fix some scrivener errors and do some cleanup and so forth. And so I do, in spite of all of that, we did on those. I can go through all of the changes that we made if you want, but I do think that what we need to do, there is a couple of changes in the revised document, right in table 113-07A, right here for the class 2 temporary sign. That should actually have a strike through. That should not be there. That should be that should go away, based off of the language that we brought forward. And also an inadvertent omission of the word "not," very important word. And if you look at the grammar, the intent here was to not allow temporary signs in the right of way, and this got overlooked. So as I say, we can go through and look at it, look in detail on all the changes that we made with the revised document, or however you would like to go.
So these particular changes are just scrivener errors, and that I would ask legal if this is in both versions of the document that you're bringing forward tonight.
Mayor, the original language, you read through the strike through. We just retooled this language to make it read a little bit better, and just omitted the word "not" accidentally.
Mr. Attorney.
So, Mayor and Council, so what we have for your consideration tonight is one ordinance, two different variations of that ordinance, depending on how council wants to proceed. We brought back before you the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation as presented at the February 6th meeting to council. And so that's still in the agenda, and council can adopt the ordinance, declare that a public record, and adopt all those recommendations. As you pointed out, Mayor, and as Rob points out, at the February 6th meeting, there was some feedback from council. Staff went back and made further revisions to the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations, and tried to memorialize the direction they were receiving from council, which was remove the billboard provisions. And in doing that, there were a few cleanup provisions that we found and changed. Rob has a comparison if you want to go through those. The two changes he's just identified are Scrivener's errors that we identified just recently. So if you adopt an ordinance tonight, what we need to know is which version you wish to adopt, whether it is the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations as presented on February 6th, or the staff revised version, which is entitled February 20th, 2018 revisions.
And so again, both versions, other than the billboard provision, are consistent with the recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is that correct?
There is this change, well, the previous change, right? This going back to the Class 2 temporary sign, the revised language that you have in front of you, let me rephrase that. The version that came from the Planning Commission would have allowed, that's a type 2, a large A-frame, would have allowed that A-frame in association with a lawful temporary event in residential zoning at basically 4 around a square mile. And as we were working through that, we realized that tying it to a lawful temporary event, we can't just say a church can do it. We can't just say, this use or that use can do it. We have to, otherwise we're back into being in trouble, or we would get in trouble like Gilbert got into trouble. But the language that came from the Planning Commission would have allowed this type of sign for any lawful temporary event occurring within a residential zone. And so part of the changes that we wrote into this, the February 20th draft, was to take that provision away, but basically allow that a type 1 sign would be allowed in association with a lawful temporary event. And then there's certain time parameters. So Monday through Thursday, there's one time parameter. Friday through Sunday is a different time parameter. And so hopefully we then still be able to accommodate the needs of the church that meets at the local school without risking having all these proliferation of signs.
Okay. Very good. So I will remind council that this is a public hearing this evening. And I know that there are people that want to speak on this item. And so perhaps we should hear from the public first and then ask the council to kind of ruminate over the choices that we have before us. So Sherry, if you want to read from the list of people who wish.
Sure.
First, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask Sherry to please ask the individuals to come forward that wish to speak on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. The first person is Rhett, and I do not have your last name, Rhett.
My last name is Cooney.
Thank you.
And thank you again for allowing me to speak tonight. Mayor and Council, my name's Rhett Cooney, and I'm a partner with Boulevard Media Company. We are a locally owned and operated outdoor advertising company. I am a 41-year resident of Arizona and began my career in outdoor with Gannett Outdoor in 1981. In the early 1998, I joined forces with Rob Lejeune, who was a longtime friend and associate, and we created Lejeune Cooney Outdoor, which is now Boulevard Media. Rob is an Arizona native and a 25-year resident of the city of Surprise, where he and his wife, Lisa, have raised their 7 children. In the first few years, we grew our business, and during this time of growth, we approached the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community with the plan to remove 45 old dilapidated billboards and replace them with 21 new uniform monopole structures. This new business venture, the Salt River Outdoor, continues to be a thriving profit center to the tribe today. I mention this because we're not just interested in building signs without taking into consideration the impact on the surrounding area and the aesthetic value of the signs we build. We have heard you and share your concerns for this community and its integrity. Our company's values are to give back to the communities we operate in. As a responsible member of the community we serve, we take the proactive role in making our neighborhoods better places to live. We do this by donating space to nonprofit and governmental organizations for their use in communicating information that positively affects the lives of those in the community. In the event of an emergency, our digital billboards can be used to quickly inform community about amber, blue, and silver alerts. This is referring to kidnapped children, dangerous felons, and missing senior citizens. We also assist local police and federal authorities in capturing fugitives by posting pictures and instructions provided by the police. We are a committed community partner and want to demonstrate this by offering the City of Surprise one of the 8 rotations on all digital billboards we would build in Surprise. The city can use its rotation to promote community events and programs, to honor individuals or outstanding businesses, or any other number of opportunities. The ease of switching content is literally a click of the keyboard. There are other ways community benefits from outdoor advertising. Billboards are an economic way for local businesses to build brand identity, increase sales, launch new products, and create customer interaction. They are relevant, economical, timely, continuous, and larger than life. Outdoor ads cost 80% less than television, 60% less than newspapers, and 50% less than radio ads. Local companies that advertise on billboards do so because it's their to increase their business activity. This increase is the amount of taxes they pay and will also result in more job creation. Local landowners reap the benefit of a new source of revenue derived from the lease rents paid by sign companies, and this could also be an option for the city if you were to choose to lease city-owned property for a billboard location. Finally, the City of Surprise would be branded on each sign at 3 main points of entry in the city if they are allowed. And I also understand there are concerns about certain content appearing on the billboards. This is also a great concern of ours. We care about advertisers on our billboards, and our policy and our commitment to you is that we will not allow any commercially offensive material to be posted on our billboards. We will not include content we would not want our grandchildren to see. Boulevard Media incorporates restrictive language as part of our standard contracts. Content defined in the agreements as restricted would be content advertising or promoting adult-oriented business, tobacco products, medical marijuana distributors, content containing slogans that may contain, imply, or simulate foul language. Your staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission did an amazing job of identifying a responsible approach to managing billboards by limiting the number of corridors to 2, limiting the zoning to commercial and industrial, and requiring a minimum spacing of a half a mile between signs greatly limits the total number of billboards that can be built. Add that to the fact that council would have ultimate approval through the CUP process gives you the final word on every application. Through our research, I believe the number of signs that could be built within the 13.5-mile Grand Avenue corridor will be between 4 and 6. The number of signs on the 1-mile stretch of the 303 corridor is between probably 1 or 2. These corridors were thoughtfully analyzed and are not near and will not impact the beautiful scenic views of the White Tank Mountains. As an owner of a billboard company, it's my sincere hope that you will consider voting yes on the inclusion of billboards in the City of Surprise.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Liz Riccia.
Liz Recchia, Government Affairs Director for WEMAR, the West Maricopa Association of Realtors. Weimar is pleased overall with the current draft ordinance, but we still have a couple of concerns. Our first one is the temporary signs for the commercial complexes. We're still concerned about the businesses, particularly small businesses in the older commercial, industrial, office, and medical complexes who have lack of visibility from the street, sidewalk, or even from the parking lots. We suggest that the City Council include the following language that was previously suggested by staff. Properties zoned for commercial uses may utilize one Class 2 temporary sign per 200 linear feet of street frontage. Said signs may be placed adjacent to, but not within any right-of-way, median, vehicle, or bicycle travel lane or sidewalk, or within any site visibility triangle as outlined in standards details 4-01 and 4-02 of the Surprise Engineering Development Standards. We believe this language will help address the much discussed and of great concern for small businesses that we've all been talking about for several months now. While we are pleased with the increased signage amounts and signage types for the new commercial complexes, we don't think this really does anything to help our smaller, less well-located in older complexes businesses. Our other concern is page 85, section 11316B2. This item requires a business with a functioning, intact, performing sign to remove that sign for no other reason than it's been standing for over 20 years. We see no compelling government interest in requiring perfectly good signage that is in good operation and good repair to be taken down, and we request that this item be deleted. We appreciate the city being concerned with adequate, visible, and legible signage, the many changes that have been already been made, and the increase in the types of signage. We thank particularly Mr. Kufis and Mr. Fitzer, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission and you, the City Council, for your time and attention to not only us, but other stakeholders. We look forward to the many positive changes that are included in this proposed sign ordinance.
Thank you.
That is all the speakers I have cards for.
All right. I'm going to give a call to the audience. Anyone else wishing to speak to the council on this item? Anyone else wishing to speak to the council on this item? Last call. If not, I will close the public hearing and begin the conversation with the council. Before we go into individual members of council, I wonder if staff could help me get the photo up that I had asked to be prepared for tonight. Thank you. So, just going to tell a little story. About 16 years ago, I got off an airplane and I rented a car and I drove up Grand Avenue. And I didn't know where I was going. I was being taken by my husband to a little place called Surprise, Arizona. And I had no idea what was up here and what was to be expected. It was a complete surprise to me. But as so many others have found the city of Surprise along Grand Avenue, 15, 16 years ago, when I first came here, I drove along Grand Avenue and I thought, wow, this is really sad. Because Grand Avenue was a perfectly good, functioning trunk highway that over the years had one curb cut after another in order to support a local interest that was trying to get things going. And then after time, things just sort of went to pot. Some of those businesses left and left behind kind of an unsightly mess along Grand Avenue. And years ago, I attempted to really think about what it would look like along Grand Avenue if all of the communities along Grand Avenue worked together to try to rethink and repurpose and revision Grand Avenue. And it was a struggle because, quite frankly, there are 11 different jurisdictions along Grand Avenue. And so to have everybody with their own city council who has their own vision, they come up with different solutions. In Surprise, we came up with some amazing solutions along Grand Avenue. We started because it was very much of a concern to me that we were ignoring the original town site. We had turned our back on the original town site. And I wanted to make certain that we focused on the beautification of the original town site and certainly along the Grand Avenue corridor to make certain that the corridor was visually pleasing and welcoming to the new visitor to coming to Surprise for the first time or for the 100th time. Always prepared to come and see an amazing city with an amazing future. And over the years, we've done some amazing things. We've cleaned up Grand Avenue, done a lot of great things along Grand Avenue. You've seen new landscaping, you've seen new road improvements. And ADOT has been amazing to work with us along the Grand Avenue with road improvements, the Bell Grand Interchange improvement, creating a gateway to our city. Other cities along Grand Avenue have taken a different approach, and they have allowed an inordinate amount of advertising that is not well thought out, not well planned. And so on one of my many trips in the last few weeks, headed towards downtown Phoenix, sitting at a stoplight in a neighboring city, this is not something I saw 16 years ago, but it's something that I saw in 2018. And I took this photograph from my windshield. This is a photograph of our next door neighbor on Grand Avenue. I don't want to look like this. That's their choice, that they want to look like this, that they're okay with that. But this is something that we've been trying to avoid. And so I want to first of all thank our Planning Commission, our staff, for doing an amazing job over the last several years, actually, looking at our sign ordinance, because we've been operating essentially without one for quite some time, without one that's really updated, and we've needed to update this sign ordinance. And we've taken a great deal of input from all of the stakeholders. That includes the businesses that we want to serve, but also more importantly, our residents. We've taken a great deal of input from them. So this is actually a starting point for us as a city of Surprise as we grow into the next phase of growing up and deciding who we want to be when we grow up. Do we want to look like that? Or do we want to be a 21st century city, clean, safe, free of visually less than attractive situations, scenarios like this, where people take advantage of an ordinance? And so I, for one, again, want to thank the Planning Commission for the work that they did. And I, for one, do not want to see the city of Surprise move in this direction with low-slung billboards along Grand Avenue to further degrade the visual, the cleanup that we've done along Grand Avenue. I'm very proud of the work that we've done, and I'm very proud of the emerging visual and the gateway that we've created along Grand Avenue. And I hope someday that we actually have a rapid transit solution down Grand Avenue and further make the Grand Avenue corridor a place that people want to be, not a place where people just want to get through as quickly as possible. So with that, I'd just like to hear from the rest of the council. And I see I have a list of requests, and so I'll go straight to Vice Mayor Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. You had a slide up there before where you were changing the wording to add not. Could you show that slide for a moment? Right there. So subsection 113-07.A through H is revised to say that no signs are permitted within the public street right of way. Is that correct?
Except as otherwise permitted by the chapter.
Okay, what is otherwise expressly permitted in the chapter?
Mayor, council member, for one, would be the class
Could
one.
Robert, could you bring your microphone up closer? Thank you.
Sorry about that. Mayor, council member, or vice mayor, the class 1 A-frame signs that would be typically used by the real estate industry for their open houses would be an example of a sign that would be allowed in the right of way.
Okay, so a business who had a temporary sign, Eat at Joe's or whatever it was, or church on Sunday, that was the oversized sign, I want to say the class B sign, whatever. That sign can be no closer than 15 feet from the curb, is that right?
No, Mayor, Vice Mayor, I think you're referring to a Class 2 A-frame, and the Class 2 A-frame, and the way the language is constructed, would be allowed within the commercial districts within 15 feet of the front door of the business that's being served. So it's not out on the street; it's on the access sidewalk under the canopy by the front door of the business.
Okay, but if it were that size of a sign, it could not be located closer than 15 feet from the curb, right?
Only if the curb was within 15 feet of the front door of the business that it served.
Well, no. I mean, you got the size of the sign is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A sign of that size, forget whether it says Eat at Joe's or it says Sunday Church. Okay. It could not, if my understanding is correct, it would not be located, it couldn't be located in any event between a sidewalk and the curb, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's my question.
Okay. Councilmember Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. Up until tonight, I don't know how this council stood on this issue. I don't know what my colleagues thought of billboards. The mayor and I often disagree on issues. Tonight, we agree. I watch a 303 being built. It runs right through the middle of my district. It's a pristine highway. I spent the last week talking to my constituents and some people not my constituents, and I even talked to the applicant. And as far as the 303 was concerned, it was not a very hard decision for me. We have the White Tank Mountains to the south. We have this beautiful cactus rolling desert to the north on the way to Interstate 17. And the ADOT did a beautiful job on that road. And I don't want to see cluttered up with billboards. And that goes for Grand Avenue too. Thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm a business guy, and I think it's good for business. And I don't think that clutter that we saw the mayor use as an example could happen with this ordinance. Am I right? With a billboard over temporary signs with, I mean, you couldn't pick a worse corner. It's ugly. But this ordinance wouldn't allow something like that on Grand Avenue.
Mayor, council member, potentially it could actually.
Really?
Yes. Because there's the way the language is constructed, if a billboard could go on Grand Avenue, it's separated from other billboards, but not from other that sign that had the Jack in the Box scattered.
Yeah, but
top.
there's certain locations that are pointed out on Grand Avenue for a billboard, Robert.
Correct.
Okay, well, there isn't any signage where those billboards can go, except the monument sign that's very tidy. You don't have temporary signs all over the place. You'd have to show me on Grand Avenue, because you showed that we went over the exact locations on Grand Avenue where those signs could go, right?
Yes.
The last meeting. You'd have to show me where all those where all that clutter would happen.
Well, Mayor, Council.
We already got one sign on Grand Avenue. We got a billboard on Grand Avenue. Okay, it's right north of Bell on Grand.
Right
Okay,
outside of Sun City Grand.
Right, it's a low profile. No, it's not outside Sun City Grand. It's near a medical building. Okay, it's off of where Litchfield turns east and merges with Grand. Right, just to the north of that. Okay, that's a sign that is not as high as what that example was. That wouldn't be allowed, that height.
The version that includes billboards as an allowed use would cap the height of those billboards on Grand Avenue to 30 feet. And I don't know how tall this billboard is in this picture.
Well, that looks higher than that.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. I think it's good for business. I don't think it's a clutter. I disagree with Councilman Winters. We're talking about one billboard, maybe two on 303. We're not talking about a whole bunch of billboards. And it's out there off of just west of El Mirage Road. There's a substation and a bunch of wires that are hanging in the air. You're not looking at mountains. You're not looking at beautiful Saguaro Desert or the white tanks. They don't even come into play. So I totally disagree with that. And I think it's good for business. I think the 303 is going to get busier and busier and busier. And you could go through Surprise on the 303 and not even know that there was a Hampton Inn or a Comfort Inn or a Residence Inn or an Outback Steakhouse. You could go right through and never know that they were even in our city. And I think it's a great way to bring people off the 303 and spend money in our city without cluttering. And we're talking about one, maybe two billboards. I mean, geez, I just think it's it creates economic activity. And that was one of the things I was you put all the goals down for this science program. You did not include promoting economic activity, did you? And I think that ought to be one of the goals, okay? Because we need more economic activity in this city. And that billboard would help. And also, we could take that billboard, and this gentleman just said we could have one of the rotates. We could say we've got a tennis tournament going on in our city. We've got a Taste of Surprise going on in our city. We've got a spring training, what the games are in our city. There's all kinds of things we could do with that billboard rotate that would promote what's going on in our city. I think that's good. Okay, so I'm for the billboards and just for the business activity. And I may granted right now I'm in the minority, but I'm a business guy and I like to see more economic activity in our city. Period. So.
Anyone else? Councilmember Tandy?
Got some clarification questions. Can you go back to that slide again with not on it?
Oops, wrong one.
Okay, so under section B, what we're saying is not is going to go in there, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the same thing with section C, the red line says not is going to go in there. Okay, that helps there. The second item is Weimar asked about the 20-year, we have to take a pull down, a perfectly good sign if it's been up for 20 years. Can you talk a little bit more about that and explain how that works?
Sure, Mayor, council member. There's a provision in the back of the draft code that has to do with what we would consider legal nonconformity.
Mm-hmm.
And And what this language says is basically if you have a non-conforming sign that's 20 years old, that it needs to come down. And so we discussed that. We discussed that internally. We discussed that with legal. We feel that it's part of having a good sign code is to be able to get rid of non-conforming signs. Okay. And so, but this also allows a very long, 20-year time frame for the owner of that sign to recuperate the money that they invested in the sign to begin with. So after we discussed it, we left it in place, but you could certainly strike it if you want.
Do we have any idea of how many non-conforming signs we would have if we pass this? And
well, Mayor, council member,
just a rough order.
Yeah. Remember too that most of what we have in the city right now is covered by an existing comprehensive sign program. So the way this language is constructed, those existing CSPs would remain intact. Mm-hmm. So we did that deliberately because we did not want to create legal non-conforming problems with all those CSPs.
Right. Okay. So those that we do find that are non-conforming, 20 years is a long time for a business to plan. So, and that potentially, if it is non-conforming, it's probably going to be an upgrade in the look for the city. And okay, so I understand that now. One alternative, there was mentioned that we don't have a way to advertise our hotels. The freeway especially has those blue signs, and it's not that difficult to get on those blue signs for hotels, restaurants, gas stations, and attractions. Is it just kind of an ongoing process with ADOT? You have to sign up and get in the queue?
Mayor, council member, that's my understanding, but I honestly, I don't know.
Okay, but it's one option. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to keep an open mind on the billboards and everything. Yesterday, I met with the representatives from the billboards to listen to what they had to say, and I realized some of them are surprise residents, and I definitely am for entrepreneurs, and that's their business and that's what they're doing. One thing I do is I have ways through social media and other ways to contact thousands of residents on a pretty fast basis. And back in August, I put this question out, and a lot of times there's a mix of responses of what the residents say, and a lot of times things are 50-50 or 40-60 or something like this. One thing back in August, it was like 83% of the people said they didn't want to see any form of billboard. And so that was kind of surprising to me. Put it out there again this morning and kind of got a similar response. So, and it's not just a few people, but it reaches thousands of people. So, of those that responded, that's kind of what it is. And I'm for listening to the citizens and trying to weigh and what we're trying to do. The other thing I did was on a regular basis, I meet with the other council members from the West Valley cities. And so I had an opportunity to talk to the Peoria council members. And I asked them what they thought about the billboards along the 303, and especially since this area that is being considered is almost right up against the border of their city. And I want to make sure we're good neighbors. And they were pretty adamant that they would not like to see that. So I'm getting lots of different feedback from different places because I think it's important on a decision like this. How do you balance economic activity and how do you balance once the council approves something like this, those billboards are entitled to stay in there for decades. And if we decide not to approve that, then we have kind of a different look and feel throughout the city. And I heard mention, the dark skies initiatives and things like that. And so there are places I think billboards are appropriate. But when I come down on this, I'm leaning towards maybe surprise residents don't want that on balance. So that's the end of my comments for right now.
Councilmember Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as what this gentleman said about letting the city advertise through the roll, do we know how much it costs to do that, or were you saying we could just do it?
That would be
If you would not respond from the audience, if you wish to have a question answered, if you would just come to the dais so you can have that on the record. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, there's 8 turns per minute on a digital billboard, and as part of trying to be a good neighbor, we would give the city one of those turns in perpetuity as long as those signs were there on any digital we built. So if there happened to be 2, the city would get 2 turns, one on each, and it wouldn't cost you anything. That's the beauty of digital. It's easier for small businesses to advertise because there's not production costs, there's not printing costs, there's not posting costs. It's an ad they can put together on a computer and send it to us, and literally click the keyboard and it's up there. And it can be changed as often as possible, as often as you want.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so that part I didn't know last time, and I was pretty adamant against billboards. With that, I mean, I think there's a few departments in our city that could use that. Especially with, like Councilman Hall said, if there's a tennis tournament or, people coming in town from Vegas could see that there's something going on or they know where to go. So I'd have to say I'm okay with it. I'm okay with them just for that reason. And now being a small business owner myself now, having left the bigger company, that's particularly something I probably could do. So if it helps the city in that standpoint and small businesses, and there's not that many of them. And believe me, I was against this in the first part of this. But judging and we get the final say on it, and they're cutting that kind of deal, I'm going to say I'm going to agree with Councilman Hall. I'm okay with with those. Thank you.
So one thing I'd like to clarify because one of the things that was suggested was that you would control content. And I think that there's a misunderstanding about your ability to control content, even as a private owner. I think, there's an understanding that government can't interfere with the freedom of speech, but that private sector can, and that is not the case. We have been struggling with the sign ordinance largely because of a ruling of the Supreme Court for the Gilbert, from the city of Gilbert, and it has challenged every city in America because of the Gilbert ruling. And I think that there is a misunderstanding about whose constitutional rights of free speech you can abridge and whose you can't, because the reality is we can't and you can't. So I did consult with the city attorney, and perhaps the attorney can kind of help us guide us through the slippery slope, at least, that we could be entering into if we presume that we would approve this based on the fact that you could refuse to allow the advertising of certain entities like gentlemen's clubs and marijuana, so on and so forth. So if you could just help me a little bit, Councilor.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I think, as a private entity, they can restrict what they want. However, while it's a nice gesture, the city has no way to enforce that commitment. We can't enter into an agreement with the private property owner limiting those restrictions. They cannot easily waive or disavow a constitutional right. So while it'd be a nice gesture, it would be something that would be completely unenforceable by the city. And should in the future there be some dispute and the city say, well, you've agreed to limit content, I think we'd be out of luck.
So, if you may.
We're not restricting the content, the property owner is. It's in our land lease. And in that lease, we don't have the right to advertise for those things I mentioned. That's standard language in our lease. So it's obviously not enforceable by the city, but it is in our land lease. We do that on purpose because we don't want that on our signs either. So, you know, I've been doing this since 1981. I've never had an advertiser. I've never been forced to advertise for a company I did not want to have advertising on our leases. And it's because of that language we specifically put in there.
Okay. And I appreciate that. The concern I have is you haven't been sued yet.
Correct.
So that's the concern. And, you know, especially if we're going to be part of the advertising, like one of the 8 roles, I just worry about the mixed message of who's managing content. And so again, I appreciate the gesture. I truly do. I just don't know how long you get away with it, especially once you're working collaboratively with the city. You have the city's logo on the signpost. All those nice gestures could entangle us further with someone who feels like their messaging is being discriminated against. So that's a concern I have. But I think the real issue is whether or not the council wants billboards at this time.
Absolutely.
And so I appreciate the application, and I want to make sure I hear from the rest of the council.
Thanks.
So thank you for sticking close by. Councilmember Hayden.
Yes. Okay, I have to get closer, sorry. What I was hearing was Skip was talking about only 2 signs. And when we met, it's actually 2, 4, 6 signs on Grand and then just 2 signs on the 303. Is that correct?
By my calculations, there could be 4 to 6 signs on Grand Avenue, and 1 or 2 on the 303.
Okay, so it's more than just the 1 sign or 2 signs over on the 303. Okay.
Yes, there's a Grand Avenue
that's
corridor
what I
as well.
thought. So all these that are on Grand that have housing around them, so these people are going to look out their back door and go in their patios, and they'll be able to see a sign across the street. Is that correct?
In the
Because of
areas
the height,
that
30 feet tall.
in the corridors that were specified by staff, there aren't houses in those areas. They're commercial and industrial areas.
On Grand?
Yes.
That's all commercial.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councilmember or Vice Mayor Remley.
It's right there.
Thank you, Mayor. I would love to see how we can write the ordinance that requires any person that puts up a billboard that they must devote 12.5% of the time that advertising is delivered during a day to public service messages. And that there would be no offensive or objectionable advertising put on any of those boards by any of the companies that build billboards. Because our speaker has generously committed to various things. However, he does not speak for the entire industry.
So, council, I'm hearing there may be a council that's ready to vote, make a decision. So I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Tandy?
Sure. Just a minute, let me grab mine. Sorry about that.
If Mayor and Council, if I can make a suggestion. So the written motion in the packet just says, I move to adopt ordinance 2018-04. We need you to identify which version that ordinance will be declaring a public record and adopting. So, for instance, appropriate motion could be I move to adopt ordinance 2018-04, adopting and declaring and then either the February 2018 post P&Z revisions as a public record, or the original planning and zoning recommendation as a public record. Your choice.
Councilmember Tandy, did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Which one of those?
I'll put a clarification in as well.
P&Z recommend.
I move to approve ordinance 2018-04 with, I wrote it down here, the February 20th post P&Z, and that would be, the intent would be the one without the billboards allowed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do you need to also have the scriveners?
Yes, if you don't mind, yes.
Along with the recommended scriveners corrections.
I'll second that.
A motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2018-04 with the clarifications.
Yeah, just so the record's correct, if this passes, you will be adopting and declaring as a public record the revised version that came back after the February 6th meeting, which disallows billboards and inserts some clarifications and corrects the Scrivener's errors as identified by Rob tonight.
Yes.
So everyone's clear on that motion?
To the chair, I pushed the wrong button. Sorry.
Did you push a button?
Yeah.
I don't think it's registered yet. Has it, Sherry?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So everyone's clear that the motion has been to adopt the version after the recommendation of the Planning Commission with the version that has scrubbed the billboards from the ordinance. That is a yes vote, and a no vote would be against. So if everyone's clear, please take your vote.
We have 5 yes votes, 2 no votes, Patrick Duffy and Skip Hall.
Thank you. And thank you for your application. Truly, I do appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work that the Planning Commission and our staff have put into really sorting through some pretty sticky issues. And it wasn't until the last minute that the billboard issue really even came into play. But I want to tell you, the work of our Planning Commission and the staff has been really yeoman's work. And I do appreciate, Robert, I appreciate all that you've gone through to bring us a good ordinance. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we'll move on to the next item.
So Mayor, Mayor, through number 7 and 8, they're going to do a presentation together, and then number 8 needs to be voted on first.
Okay, and these are also public hearings.
Correct. So the first one is consideration and action pertaining to approval of a zoning change from residential ranch to medium density residential 4.3 dwelling units per acre with a PUD overlay and medium density residential for approximately 33 total acres generally located at the southeast corner of 175th Avenue and Waddell Road, ordinance 2018-02. And then the next item is consideration and action pertaining to approval of the preliminary plat entitled Heritage Farm dated December 20th, 2017, approximately 33 acre subdivision generally located at the southeast corner of 175th Avenue and Waddell Road.
Good evening again.
Mayor, council members, so this is the Heritage Farm Zone change in pre-plat. We're also joined here this evening with by Mark Reddy from LBA Urban Design Studios, who is the applicant on this project. You'll recall this is one of the pieces that was previously associated with the Magnolia project about a year ago. This is a small segment of that 33 acres of that project. We're looking at the extreme northwest area of this largely undeveloped land next to Sarah Ann Ranch. And we've got 22 acres of RM9 with the PUD overlay, capping at 4.3 dwelling units per acre as part of that PUD. Then we have 11 acres of RM6 with the PUD overlay, capping at 4.5 for an overall density of 4.4 dwelling units per acre over the entire 33 acres. Included in this slide, the original configuration that you saw with Magnolia, and this is what they're proposing right now. So it's very similar in terms of its lot mix and so forth. Now the PUD overlay has several components to it. One is to remove the community pool requirement. There's a provision in the SUDC that requires a community pool for medium density zoning projects, but given that these are really single family dwelling units on single family lots with a backyard that's capable of holding a swimming pool, they've asked to remove this provision from this project. Then there's a provision that also discusses the perimeter, the landscape buffer, and really kind of reconfigures it a little bit. And then also has with the average width of 60 feet, and then there's the single loaded. If you look here, there's a project not too far from here where you have a single loaded street, and the way the language of the code would actually eliminate all of these row of houses, and that can tend to be kind of costly, and so they've asked to remove that provision from this project. Another provision that adjusts the size of the turf area associated with the residential, really because it is out of proportion with this project. And then we've seen this graphic many times before. This is because of what we refer to as the 30-30 rule, which on these smaller, narrower lots, it's very hard to make. You wind up with a 13-foot, 6-inch wide driveway, and it doesn't work out very well. So the PUD overlay would get rid of that. Would solve that problem for us. They've asked for some slightly amended development standards. Primarily, if you notice in the RM6, decrease in the overall density from 6 dwelling units per acre to 4.3. In the RM9, reduces from 9 dwelling units per acre to 4.5. And then there's a slight increase in the lot size and an increase in the lot width also in the RM9. And the project, how it, with the landscaping, also very interesting and unique entry feature in the split rail fence that kind of ties back to the heritage of the property, and hence the name Heritage Farm. We also have a theme wall with this project. We have two versions of a view fence, which I'll show a little bit later on. Then getting into the preliminary plat, this is the actual lotting of it. This is the line drawing for that. And you can see the configuration and a park in the middle, HOA maintained park, and so forth. Nicely landscaped all the way around the perimeter and within the interior, with the trails that connect through, and ultimately will connect up to some of the adjacent development as it occurs. And then going to the 3 fence arrangements. This is so we have the theme wall or the theme fence that goes around, a type of view fence along these areas shown in green, and a different configuration of view fence for the areas in purple. And then another version of what you saw before. Held a citizen outreach in October of 2017. Was As I recall, this one wasn't terribly well attended. There were a few people there, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. I apologize. But coming from the Planning Commission, the zone change, the recommendation from the Commission is approval subject to stipulations A and B. And if you move forward with the zone change, then the preliminary plat, the Commission would recommend approval subject to stipulations A through E. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. Tell me why the presumption that everybody can afford $30,000 for a swimming pool is the reason why we can eliminate a community pool when the zoning already required it.
Well, Mayor, Vice Mayor, the zoning would require in the medium density zoning districts a community swimming pool. And with the original Magnolia project, there was going to be a community swimming pool that was going to serve basically the entire half section, pretty much. Here you have 33 acres. You would have a community pool that is quite costly to maintain by the HOA. But I think to answer your question, the lot size lends itself to a privately owned swimming pool.
So folks can afford the cost of swimming pools, right? That's a presumption. And yet the zoning required that a pool be provided. So basically the developer doesn't want to pay for a pool. It isn't the HOA being able to maintain it later. The developer doesn't want to pay for a pool, and we want to reduce everything else here. It almost, to me, this is the first project I've seen that looks like a total giveaway to the developer. That's just a comment I have.
Councilmember Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. The two turn-ins off 175th, they'll have their own turn lane, right? I hope. As you're coming, let's say, north on 175th, looks like that one's just a little past Sweetwater, and then farther up. Will that have a right turn lane to go in?
Mayor, Councilmember, you're talking right here?
Yeah. And then the one down the bottom.
Down here. I don't remember if those have a left turn pocket, certainly a right turn, but I don't remember if they also have a left turn pocket. Probably have to look a little more closely at the pre-plat, which I can certainly do. Unless the applicant knows off the top.
It's only one lane. I mean, if you don't have a turn lane left, we already got enough problems on that road.
Well, there is a provision. There will be a median going through here. The exact configuration of that median, I don't recall off the top of my head, but that median, if that median blocks, then there would not be an opportunity for a left turn into that area. But that's what I have to look at the drawing. I don't quite remember.
Okay.
Is that your question, Councilmember?
There wouldn't be a left hand in the door.
Yeah, that looks like if you're coming off of Waddell, you take a left and you start going south on 175th. You're telling me you can't turn left in the neighborhood?
Councilmember, you want to share that little side conversation?
Sorry. I'm saying what I just got out of what you said is if you start going south on 175th, you can't take a left into your own neighborhood?
That doesn't make any sense.
That can't be right.
I think the applicant is approaching the dais, and maybe you can help us sort through this. If you would identify yourself for the record.
Mayor Wilcott, my name is Mark Reddy. I'm with LVA. We're the applicant for the project. Councilman Duffy, yes, there are left turn pockets to both entrances. We will be building. Us, along with the school and the other developments that are occurring on 175th, will be completing that collector road, which is a 2-lane road with a center median, and there will be median breaks and turn lanes at both entries into our community.
Boy, am I glad you're here.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
And if I may just address Vice Mayor's comment regarding the pool. As we studied the zoning code, the RM6 and the RM9 zoning districts were intended for medium density residential projects. And there's some challenges with the current zoning code when you're dealing with smaller lot products. The standard single family residential zoning districts don't allow anything less than a 6,000 square foot lot or a 60-foot wide product. The market nowadays is for a little bit of a smaller lot, and we're proposing 45 and 50-foot lots. And because of that, we're not able to use what would be the appropriate single-family residential zoning district standards. So we're kind of forced to use the medium density district standards. And a lot of the standards affiliated with that zoning district really don't apply to a single-family detached residential subdivision. They really apply more for a medium density product where you have a lot of community amenities that are shared among very, very small lots. So we're in a position where we're using a zoning district that is more consistent with the lot size, but isn't consistent with the product type. And so we went through the same issue with the first project that we came before you for, which was the 10 acres at the southeast corner of Sweetwater and 175th. We had those same provisions in that project, which was approved, recommended by the Planning Commission, approved by the council. We've got these same provisions in this project, and we're going to be coming before you on a couple of other projects within the former Magnolia piece, which we will have those same issues. The intent here is that because these are single-family residential products with backyards, homeowners, if they choose, can provide their own pool, and many of them do. And the desire and the need for a community pool in these smaller subdivisions really isn't there, and the homeowners typically don't want to pay the additional HOA fees that are required in order to own and maintain a pool for a single family subdivision such as this. And so that's why we're asking for that provision. Staff supports it. The Planning Commission understands and supports that. And we're asking for the council support as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Both of these items are public hearing, and I know we just heard from the applicant, but I want to at this time open the public hearing, and anyone from the audience who wishes to speak to this item that has not signed up with Sherry. Sherry, has anybody signed up on this item other than the applicant?
Mayor?
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Yes, if you would approach. Ed, take your time. If you would identify yourself for the record.
My name is Ed Hansel, and I live in Litchfield Manor in Surprise. And I thank you for allowing me to address you on the subject that I have addressed many times. As I look at the map, I see a big green spot in the middle. And all I see around it is narrow streets. Narrow streets that will probably prohibit parking in front of those areas. So, one more time, where will Mommy park? No doubt that there will be some playground equipment there, which is meant for preschoolers and toddlers. And Mommy's not going to let them walk by themselves down there. So Mommy's going to load them in the old minivan and drive them down there and then not be able to park anywhere. That needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Anyone else? At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Council? Item 8 is the first one that needs to be voted on. So what is your pleasure?
I'm sorry.
What is your pleasure?
I motion to approve ordinance 2018-02, subject to stipulations A and B, as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve ordinance 2018-02 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
I am missing Councilmember Winters. Thank you. So we have 5 yes votes, 1 no vote Remley, and 1 abstain Hayden.
Did you mean to abstain?
Okay. 5 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstained.
All right, very good. Motion passes, so we'll move on to the item before, item 7.
I move to approve the preliminary plat entitled Heritage Farm dated December 20th, 2017, subject to stipulations A through E as listed in the staff report.
Second. Okay.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the preliminary plat entitled Heritage Farm dated December 20th, 2017, as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
So we have 6 yes vote, 1 no vote Remley.
Very good, thank you. So we'll move on to item 9.
Item number 9, consideration and action pertaining to approval of an amendment to the fiscal year 2018 budget by reallocating appropriations in the amount of $162,500 within the Ground Ambulance Service Fund related to expansion of services with a full-time administrative technician position and Fire Station 301 remodel, amending capital list of items over $50,000, Resolution 2018-33.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Council. Surprise Fire Medical Department is submitting to you for your consideration and possible action a budget amendment within the ambulance service revenue fund to take $150,000 and remodel Station 301, take the conference room, turn it into 2 bedrooms for future expansion of our own ground ambulances at some point in time into that station. It'll be very similar to what we just accomplished with Fire Station 303, and the balance, the $12,500, is to take a part-time administrative technician that's helping us with the invoicing for the ambulances and convert her to for full-time for the balance of the fiscal year. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, members? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Chief, I think I've asked you this before, but is this, at what point does the ambulance service be cash positive?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Hall, that's a great question. We are actually producing. We've just cleared over $3 million of revenue in not quite 2.5 years. We've produced over $3 million of revenue. And the way we allocate that within the city, we wind up having to put money into a fund to pay back for the loans that we've taken,
right?
The interfund loans. Then we also have to set aside money to replace the ambulances going forward into the future, and we're covering all of our costs. But I think Finance Director Lindsay Duncan could probably speak a little more to that, but she's very confident in what we're producing right now as far as the revenue, as far as keeping up with what we're doing.
Because the billing is a few months behind the actual service, right, Chief?
Yes,
so
sir.
that's one of the challenges when you start this up, is you got a lot of cash expense, but the billing doesn't quite catch up with it.
It's the actual receipt of the funds
Right,
from the insurance
exactly.
companies,
That's
because
what I
we're trying to bill within 48 hours.
Right, but I mean the receipt of the funds.
Correct. And it could be, Medicare typically pays within 30 days, but also with a Medicare reimbursement, it's roughly a third of what we invoice for. And that's something we have to accept going into it. Private insurance could be 90 to 120 days before we see a reimbursement.
I see. Okay, so is Lindsay still here? Does she leave? What do you think, Bob? I mean, where are we in the?
So, Madam Chair, Councilmember Hall, to fully fund the new ambulance and pay back the current ambulance, it's probably 3 to 5 years till it's perfectly all costs are fully reimbursed. I'd say that conservatively, but I do want to point out that there is a significant benefit, at least to me, and that's the fact that with this ambulance program, we're able to bring our fire companies and paramedic companies back into service more quickly. And that's something that's very difficult for me to quantify.
Right.
But I think it does result in faster response.
It's a factor in this whole thing. I just wanted to shine a light on it.
Yeah.
That it does take time when we start this up for this to really generate and become at least cash positive. And there's other benefits besides that. So,
yes.
Yeah.
But I will say, Madam Chair, Councilmember Hall, that there are very few enterprises that the finance director gets behind 100%. And this is one of them, however, that she does.
Yeah, no, I know she's very positive about it. Anyway, okay, Chief.
I think a point to Councilmember Hall's points. With Medicare reimbursement, I mean, whether it's it's our ambulance service or a private sector ambulance service, Medicare reimbursement's the same, and it's not reimbursing at the rate that we need, and private sector doesn't either. Private sector is in it for profit. We are not here for profit. We're here for providing service, and so the quality of the service that we provide, not just for medical but for fire and to get you back, that is a net benefit that I think is it has its own value. While we may not be able to quantify a cash value on it, I think it creates a safety value for our citizens. And so I've always been a big supporter of this program, and I'm glad we're seeing it come to fruition. And yes, it does take some time to start up a new enterprise, as it were. And you guys are doing a great job. I really do appreciate the service that you're providing our residents.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for your observations. We believe in sometime this fall, we should have our 4th ambulance fully operational, and that's what this budget amendment's for, is to allow us to give them sleeping quarters. Not that I think they'll use them very much, because the ambulances so far have proved to be very busy. Mm-hmm. And just to answer your question a little bit further, Councilmember Hall, the payer mix right now is 31% Medicare, and the 69% is other funding sources, which were, albeit a little slower in reimbursement, we're definitely, the receivables are a much higher rate.
All right. Vice Mayor Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. My questions are along the same lines. From the billings that you're seeing going out, from the costs that you know you're incurring, are the expected returns that you're billing greater than the costs that you're incurring?
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor, yes.
Okay, so that's really the question. Is this thing going to cash flow for us? Okay. The second question is, you know, I can't thank you enough for having the vision to bring this ambulance service to our city and all of the benefits that we've already talked about that are going on. My question right now might be, are we maybe jumping the gun in terms of trying to do too much too fast? Or do you feel like we're moving along at a measured pace that we're going to be able to fund as we go here? You know, because here's another $150,000. You know, well, we're going to spend that now. So when do we plan on putting that ambulance there? We must have something really in the works pretty close by to be spending the money today.
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor, there is plans for this fall to place an ambulance at Fire Station 301 on Village Park East, and just south of Bell, and serving the east side of our community. So we do believe that, I guess probably the best way of describing this, we came in last year for the amendment for Station 303, and that was at $98,000. We're having the exact same thing done this time. We're asking for $150,000, realizing that we overspent on that last one. So I do believe we're not going to spend the full $150,000, but we want to have the room within the budget to make sure that it does happen accordingly. And we're not coming back to you to ask for an additional budget authority. I do believe that we are following a very, very measured increase in our service delivery. I would anticipate the spring of next year, 2019, the fifth ambulance would arrive. Now, whether we would actually put it in service is going to be dependent upon call volume versus revenue generation, and if we can sustain the program and generate enough revenue to be cash flow to be positive for us. So we are watching those numbers daily. I know some people in the city manager's office feel I'm pushing too hard for it. They want to slow me down, because if I had my way, this would have been done a long time ago. But if to do it in a very conservative, controlled manner, that's the process we're going through, and I think it'll prove in the long run to be the most beneficial to the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
Sure. I move to approve Resolution 2018-33.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2018-33 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Nancy, did you vote?
Thank you.
Yes.
That's a unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, next item.
Consideration and action pertaining to approval of an amendment to the fiscal year 2018 budget by reallocating appropriations of $21,000 from the Services and Operations Fund to the Personnel Fund to accommodate two Economic Development Department position changes, Resolution 2018-38.
All right.
Sorry, is that going to go? All
Janine,
thank
you have a presentation.
I sure do. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. We have a presentation, I think that will pop up in a moment. Do I need to? Oh, and it's all on me, which is a really scary thought. Hold on one moment. What do I need to do? I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. Oh, wow. All right. Pardon me. I'm, technology challenged. I appreciate it. So good evening. So I'm bringing you a brief action item. I'd like to modify two positions in the department to make the positions more competitive and the department more competitive. The cost of the overall changes is about $21,000, and we will take from our existing budget, from outside services and service agreements and maintenance and so forth, resulting in no increase to the overall budget. So this is a perfect time for us to be doing this. You may know we're in the process of a lot of changes in the department. You may remember back in January, Mike Hoover moved to the city manager's office and continues to work with Ottawa and the downtown development project. Additionally, we have a vacant position due to wonderful things with Kendra Pettis leaving us to go to lead sports and tourism. So those are two really important factors. So the purpose of of the position changes, really, we're really addressing these changes. We're addressing some key competitiveness issues. For us to adapt with the changing times and an increasing workload, our workload has increased, just as a quick reference, about 65% over last year, as we tallied the number of inquiries and projects that were coming to us year over year. So really, two things. One position, we're upgrading a vacant position from coordinator to a project manager position. This is really for pipeline purposes. We need a more effective management process of when the projects come in from start all the way to closure. So that's something we felt was really important. Secondly, from a proactive perspective, we've heard from council that you'd like us to be more proactive, that we need to kind of get with the times and reach our external market. And we've got such talented staff. We've got great tools at our disposal, and we need to elevate a position in order to achieve that. So one of them would elevate an analyst to the marketing coordinator position. So we need to accelerate that. This addresses both short and long-term needs. And again, no additional budget. We're working within our existing budget. So just to kind of break this down a little bit, we have the capacity in our existing budget to do this. We are investing in people. So this was important to point out, and how this totals to $21,000. We believe we can make slight reductions in some of our outside services in areas where we see fluctuations or we have money left over. And I want to assure you that, if there was a significant shortfall, if a project arose, and if we had a specific need where we needed to land a project or there was a mission critical thing that we needed to get past the finish line, I'm not shy to come to you and talk about things that we need to do with our Economic Development Contingency Fund in order to land those deals. So that was one thing I wanted to assure you of. With that concludes this presentation, and I would be very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Very good. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Janine, the ED project manager, the way I understand it is that once there is a prospect that's in the pipeline, that person will manage it in terms of the tours, in terms of coordinating with GPAC, or whatever needs to be done once they're in the pipeline. Is that what that project manager does? Is that their responsibility?
That is accurate. So if you're, to think about it in terms of a person that intakes the project and is thinking strategically, how do I get each and every one of those through the process, and and utilizing the resources within the department to do that, and coming to me to say, we need 5 more social media campaigns in order for this project to see this happen, and coming to me for those resources. But that person would manage that deal flow and make sure that we're, the pipeline is robust and that they are closing the deals. And there are comparable positions in several other competitive cities.
And then the coordinator is the one that tees these people up, that does the pick and shovel work to get them to look at Surprise.
Yeah, I mean,
consider Surprise as a destination, et cetera. That's what that person does 8 hours a day.
That is correct. The coordinator is like the soldier.
New business, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then where does Al DeAngelis play into this?
So Al DeAngelis is one of our 3 part-time positions. He focuses solely on, he focuses on a lot of things because he's very dynamic. He's an entrepreneur by, just his blood.
But we all get great feedback.
Oh, he's amazing.
I mean, he really does a great service to retail and restaurants, et cetera. But so how would he fit into this?
So Al would continue to focus on small business. So the small business position, the tech accelerator functions, and I believe the administrative function of the department and the project manager would all still report to me. So the small business person, the small business person, Al would continue to work on those small business needs, and do just the things that he does. He's able to reach out and make connections that most of us are not able to get just because of his own experience.
So the coordinator is mostly, I'm trying to get clear here.
Yeah.
Janine, that's why I'm
Sure.
asking. Okay.
Sure.
Is that the coordinator would focus more on the industrial complex?
So when you say the coordinator, do you mean
the marketing coordinator?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So
Okay,
the economic.
that person would focus more on the industrial complex for those kind of companies to attract those kind of companies to Surprise?
So everybody, right, everybody in the project manager and with a coordinator title in their function is here to do business, to bring in business attraction prospects.
Okay.
If that makes sense. The economic development marketing coordinator is something in between the data analyst position and a regular coordinator. So they may work on marketing strategies. They may go out into the market and work on business retention projects and get real-time market data that they can push into project proposals, find data points that we don't know about our market and push those messages out.
Okay. So this marketing coordinator, a furniture store would be on the top of that person's list to find?
You know, if that is what the residents want, and that is a key gap, and that is what the furniture store thinks we're a market where that they can be successful, then that is absolutely a priority.
Okay, but that person would find that person would go after that, right?
Yes,
Okay.
they would go after high priority retail projects in all of our sectors. So advanced manufacturing and innovation, office projects, and retail.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Good question.
Vice Mayor Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. My question, I guess it's two parts. In the background narrative that we have, you had 2 vacancies there, right? Was your budget for the year reduced at the time those vacancies occurred due to personnel moves to different departments?
Our budget was, our services and operations budget was not reduced.
Okay.
To my knowledge.
So we're asking to move money to the personnel, even though that budget was never reduced for the 2 people that have been gone, right? Why do we need to move more money across? That's my question.
Why we deliberately looked at budget items that don't see right. So we've established the department 3 years ago. So now we have somewhat of a baseline. So we picked line items where there wasn't a consistent level of demand on that. So for example, service agreements.
If I may, Mr. Wiggenroth.
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor, to answer your question, and first let me just say that I'm former finance director, but as city manager after that amazing budget presentation, I shooed the finance director out. So you do have second team, junior varsity on this, but it is our practice that when you're correct, there is sufficient funding because we've had vacancy savings in the department, but we used to fully fund our position. And we need vacancy savings across the city to help us afford those 22 positions that were discussed. So we always, as a practice, fully fund, make sure we take from another line item and fully fund that position. But you are correct, but it's just our budget approach and our discipline. Yes.
It's just the different line items. Okay.
Absolutely.
Then the second question is, I don't know if you have that slide where you had so many thousand for one and so many thousand for the other. Okay. Is that for 1/4 of a year or is that for a full year?
This is an annual. My understanding
Is that an annual?
Yeah.
Yes, it's an annual. So that's the delta.
3 months that are left?
That's the delta for each of those positions. So that the first position on an annual basis will have $12,000 more. That's the difference between the two, the 9,000. So that's an annual look.
So for purposes of the 2018 budget year that we're in, we wouldn't really be moving 21,000. We would be moving 5,500, right?
No, we would. So if this is approved, the two positions that would be in the budget that we would present to you would be in these new titles, and it would be the ED project manager would be $12,000 more than the ED coordinator if you didn't make any
Right,
change.
and in the new budget, but the budget year that we're in right now, because we're talking about making these changes right now.
You're correct.
We're really just about
Would be the
$5,000.
pro rata. It'd be the pro rata cost.
Okay,
Great
thank
question.
you.
Councilmember Remley, or excuse me, Councilmember Tandy.
Thanks. So being a former CFO and budget, I think I understand what's going on. We've had a very talented person that was with economic development that now has moved on to enhance the effort on our Ottawa relationship. But you still have a ton of projects you're working with. And so we need somebody to backfill in some of the project manager roles that Mike Hoover formerly held. So that makes sense to me. And then with the marketing coordinator, that also makes sense to me because I've been pushing that we need to do more branding and let the East Valley folks know about Surprise and let the California folks know about Surprise. Right. So these are with a new department that's a few years old, I like a lot of the changes and the flexibility that we give you. I do like that you're also doing it within your existing budget to the extent you can. And I also, to Vice Mayor Remley, you're not going to spend this whole amount this year, but you're changing the budget. So maybe for next year, that's how it lines up. And so it helps to explain, what's the magnitude a little bit better than just giving us a little piece of what's going on. So I appreciate it. And I'm encouraging this because you've been doing great things, and I know you got a bigger pipeline than when I first started. I think we had one page, and now we got pages. So we got a lot of things that the staff is working on, and I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Very good. So it appears we've answered all the questions, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2018-38.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2018-38 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, Janine. Good job. Next item. We saved the best for last. While you're setting up, Eric, I'm just going to explain a little bit to the audience and also to council. A few years ago, Mayor Jackie Meck from Buckeye invited me to participate in the beginning elements of the White Tank Mountain Regional Park and Recreation Conservancy. And we have been trying to find ways to work with the county to make certain that we conserve this precious mountain range to the west of us that, quite frankly, is an amenity that few can enjoy as greatly as the West Valley. It essentially serves as the central park for the West Valley. It is the largest regional park in the country. And it is an amenity that all of our residents enjoy, and it is a tourism benefit as well. So being cognizant of the fact that development is beginning to grow and become moving more in our direction in the West Valley, we want to make certain that we conserve the mountain range and that we also have opportunities to help shape the development of the areas around the White Tank Mountain Park. And so a couple years ago, Jackie, Mayor Meck, and I started talking about how we might be able to improve that working relationship with the county. And we came up with a suggestion of how we might work in collaboration with the county to put the White Tank Mountain Park in our respective planning areas. The agreement was, though, we will never annex the White Tank Mountain Park into our city without full written consent and authorization of the county. So the idea is that we protect, but we facilitate the planning of the area around it. So Eric, that's where I leave off, and you've done a masterful job of helping us finalize the last draft. So if you would just further explain.
Yes. So Mayor, members of this council, what this is an intergovernmental agreement between the three parties that would be associated with the White Tank Mountains. The county as the owner, the city of Buckeye, and the city of Surprise. Again, I'll show you a map, but the majority of the White Tank Mountains Regional Park lies outside of any planning area, which is actually pretty rare in Maricopa County. Every piece of land is pretty much in someone's planning area, but this is one area that was not. The city of Buckeye was looking to expand into that area under their new general plan update that they were doing. And I know the mayor had worked very proactively with Mayor Meck over there. And I know our attorneys have worked very proactively with their attorneys on crafting this IGA. So I want to make sure that everyone, gets credit for the credit that's due. So again, both communities have vested interests. We have kind of the north entrance and the west or the east entrance. Buckeye kind of has the west entrance and more of the south entrance. And one of the things we want to make sure is that both entities had equal kind of rights to kind of overall in the white tanks and the planning areas, and also that we jointly kind of plan how future trails and those kinds of things work together. So again, just here's the background basically on that. So the idea is that we'd work jointly with all the three entities on, planning of the White Tank Mountain Regional Park in the future, or any expansion to existing facilities. The agreement itself, again, basically says Maricopa County agrees that Buckeye and Surprise may include the park in our general planning areas. Buckeye won't annex it unless express written consent from the county is gained. Surprise agrees with that and basically says that we will not annex unless we have express written consent from the county. And in the future, the parties we may have the ability to do joint development of trails, similar amenities within the park or outside the park. In which case, we need to make some amendments to this agreement. But overall, this just kind of sets the framework of how we can work together. So, based on this map, this is the mag map showing the different planning areas in the Northwest Valley. And as you can see, this area, again, the white tanks, is not included within a planning area. This is an older map. If you remember, under our last major general plan amendment, we actually moved our planning area line south to the Olive Road. So this area was included. Buckeye would be including this area up to Olive Road so that we'd kind of have joint access into the park, but we'd have the north side of the access, and then they would have south. And then this would be the overall makeup of kind of how the different communities would bring the park into their respective planning areas. So as you can see, we kind of divided it evenly so that it made sense overall. Again, the city of Surprise kind of have the north and west mostly, and Buckeye with the south, or north and east, and Buckeye with the south and west. So with that said, one of the things that we would need to do over this next year is we'll need to process a major general plan amendment, similar to how not similar to how the other one we processed where we made a bunch of changes, but this would be expanding our planning area into that area. So that would be one thing that staff would be working on over this next year is a major general plan amendment to expand our planning area boundary to basically utilize this as the new planning area boundary at some point. Buckeye is currently in their, I think, just passed their 60-day review on their general plan, which would reflect these boundaries as well. Mm-hmm. That said, if you have any questions, staff would be happy to answer those.
Very good. Councilmember Winters?
Thank you, Mayor. Great job, Eric. That project didn't lay in there for so long. We want to make sure nobody goes in and starts putting high rises when it gets the mountain there. And that's great. You guys control that. That's a good job. It's a beautiful area. We don't want to get destroyed. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Motion?
I move to approve resolution 2018-37.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve resolution 2018-37 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Thank you very much. Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you again, Eric. Appreciate all the help, and council, appreciate your help as well. All right. So future agenda items. Anyone have any item for a future agenda item? We'll move on, if not, to council reports. We'll start with you, Councilmember Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one thing to talk about. Not many things I was doing last week, but maybe some of you know that I've been working on trying to get the Vietnam Wall into Surprise. It's been going on 2 years now, and I finally got a phone call 2 weeks ago. We have a date. It's going to be July 5th at Mark Coronado Park. And I want to say Jody has been such a trooper on this thing. She's been working like crazy to get this thing done, along with our CRS group, Donna Mill and Paul Friday, really doing a great job. So it's coming together. Don't know all the details yet, but it's going to be, we know it's going to be July 5th. They're going to bring the wall in, and there's 2 people that go with the wall, and they stay with the wall 24 hours a day. We need some volunteers. We have a call out to veterans that want to help get it set up. The Lowe's will donate the wood for the base, and we need some veterans just to help the residents. And if they want to scratch your name off the wall, they can. It's a piece of paper they put on, just like in D.C. They scratch it, and you get your loved one's name on a piece of paper. Just have a few more details to work out, but keep our fingers crossed nothing happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hayden.
I have nothing
Okay.
to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. So earlier when you were complimenting the staff, and I have to share a story about how good the staff really is. So I get to work to my financial job last week, and there's a car, really old car, backed into a parking lot right by our front door. And there's a rather large pit bull mix with his head out the window. And I don't see anybody else in the car. So I just kind of slowly walk past it and go in. And the manager of that financial branch is standing there. And he said, I think there's somebody asleep in the car. I've already called Surprise PD. So when Surprise PD gets there, I walked out and just said hello to him. And he walks up to the car. And the dog kind of barked, but that wasn't a big deal. But kind of knocks. And this woman wakes up, and so does a 5-year-old little girl. And as soon as we saw that, even the officer was kind of like, what do you want to do? And I said, right off the bat, I called Seth Dyson on my cell phone. And within 5 minutes, Seth was there and said to the officer, is it okay if I take her over? He's like, she's not in trouble. I don't want to get her in trouble. Please just help them out. And as soon as you see that little girl.
That's great.
So she follows Seth over there. And about an hour later, I go back to see, how she's done. I walked over to the tech accelerator where they were. Benevilla social workers were already talking with the woman. Charlotte was doing a great job. Edith was playing with the little girl. Already had her a Barbie doll and an Iron Man costume she was playing with to keep her occupied while they were talking to her mom. PD was there, and they were trying to find help. They were trying to see who would take the dog, too. And it was just amazing to see how everybody just worked together to try to help this lady and her little girl.
That's great.
And it was outstanding to see. I want to know how it turned out, but it was just something I couldn't go without telling you guys about. Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you, Councilmember.
It's great.
And excellent work to our staff once again. That's a wonderful story, and we hear them all the time.
Yes, we do.
Councilmember Hall.
Just a few things. I was at the Arizona Charter Academy won the literacy challenge for the 4th grade. So we had a party at the Arizona Charter Academy, and just great kids, great questions. Then I was chaperone at the Surprise Youth Council Level 4 event. here at City Hall, and it was really fun. It was cold though, man. And good thing Mike Cassidy got the space heaters, because that really helped. But it was I think we ended up with like 250 kids, and it just really went well, and it was just a lot of fun, and I was glad to help. I went to the Canyon Ridge STEM night because I'm on their advisory council there at Canyon Ridge, and this STEM night was just unbelievable. What these kids are doing. I mean, they're robotics, and they had this one classroom that was called the Invention Convention. And the stuff that they were coming up with, the teacher, I was kidding with him, and he says, yeah, he says, some of these kids got such great ideas. I'm thinking about quitting teaching and marketing some of their ideas, because they had some great ideas. But anyway, and then I went to the retirement of Cheryl Vent. And, Cheryl Vent, since I've been on the council, she's been the data lady. She's put together all the crime statistics and all the rest of it. She does such a great job. And so I really wish her all the best. She's moving to Hawaii with her husband. He's working on a railroad over there, a historic railroad in Hawaii. And I guess she's going to help him. But anyway, so and then last Friday night, I went to the Police Appreciation Awards. And Chief, your group just did a great job. And Donna, what's her last? The lady from Human Resources. Yeah, Muse, she did a great job as the MC. And yeah, she's really good. She's got a great sense of humor. And
we'll see her on Saturday Night Live one of these days.
Yeah, really. But anyway, it was a great night, and I was really honored to be there with your guys, Chief. So anyway, that's all I got.
Councilmember Tandy.
Thanks. I'll start off. I won't say a whole lot about it. I'll let the Vice Mayor continue with it. But I attended the 25th anniversary, HOA anniversary at Coyote Lakes, and I thought that was a great event. And the Vice Mayor had a lot to do with that. I also attended the Surprise Police Annual Award Ceremony. And I'm just impressed with the stories and what our officers are actually doing. And
yeah, really.
It's like, and these are just the ones that got the awards. That the whole force is doing all kinds of things, and that not everybody gets to hear those stories. And
right.
And some of the officers just, I don't know how he could have even done that much in a year. So it was amazing, and all kinds of great things. I also attended a couple different economic development events. It was with a baseball suite with economic development, and also our Westmark Healthcare Committee. Healthcare is a really big initiative in here, and it was really important to talk with the contacts and, making sure that they know where Surprise is and think of us when they move forward. Also attended a Canadian American Business Council over in Scottsdale meeting with economic development. Our economic development director, Janine Yerkovic, was one of the presenters. We also had presentations by Mayo Clinic and just all kinds of great presentations. And I was just impressed by everything that's going on. I also got a little bit of inside information that, we've got another medical clinic coming here sometime that I'll wait until we can actually announce who it is. But those types of things are very important in spreading the word. And so I'm just impressed with all the good things that are going on. Also did along with a lot of the staff, I know the chief was even there, the Read Across America over at Countryside School. I thought that was a fun event.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that was a great time over at Coyote Lakes. A week ago Saturday. They had about 250 people there, all under a tent, and great food put on, catered by One Step Beyond, a nonprofit here in the community that just does a wonderful job of catering. And they had great desserts and everything else. And it was really neat to see those kids, because they got such pleasure just out of serving the food to us, So we haven't mentioned that this week was Dr. Seuss's birthday. And several of us, including our city managers, assistant city managers, we went over and read to some of the kids in some of the classrooms, and I get such a kick out of it, because frankly, I didn't read that many Dr. Seuss books when I was young, and I'm getting a lot of really good meaning out of some of those books I was reading.
They were written for adults, you know.
No, they were written for me. So the other day we did that, and I got a kick out of it, and so do the kids, I hope. So that pretty much concludes my remarks for today. Thank you.
Very good. Well, I want to once again thank all of the council for going to all the events in the city and actively participating and working with our staff. And I also want to thank Janine Yurkovic for allowing me to be her sidekick in Canada. A little over a week ago, actually, I went with the MAG Regional Council with 7 mayors, including the Mayor of Phoenix, to Montreal in an effort to celebrate a new direct flight from Montreal to Phoenix. And as you know, our Canada initiative here in the City of Surprise is really dependent on developing relationships with the people of Canada. And so while the economic development staff from Surprise wasn't able to join me on the first leg of the trip, we were there with the MAG staff and with the other mayors, and we spent a whirlwind day meeting we had 8 different meetings with potential contacts, particularly with large manufacturing companies in aerospace and high technology companies. So there was one in particular that I'm very interested in, and I've shared with Janine. But then on the second leg of the trip, I flew to Toronto, where I joined Janine and Mike Hoover, who did, as always, a wonderful job with our friends from Canada who are working on this cross-border healthcare initiative, and I was really honored to deliver the report that was assembled by our task force to investors in Canada at the Royal Canadian Military Institute. It was really something to be able to deliver that and to really represent the city of Surprise in that environment. These folks absolutely love our staff. They love the cross-border healthcare initiative. They think it's a terrific idea. And quite frankly, I think one day it could be one of the largest revenue generators in the city of Surprise. I feel very confident in the success of this initiative. So I'm just so very proud of our staff. And I look forward to the continued steps that we take to make it a success. So kudos to you, Janine, and your entire team for making this happen. So with that, I am finished for this evening. I don't think we have an executive session. So I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. This meeting's adjourned.